Hey guys, and welcome back to the only series around that combines the lore of Magic the Gathering with the physical cards you can win. I'm Simon, and this is Friday Night Lore. It's a special FNL this week, not in the contents of the video per se, but because today marks the beginning of Eldritch Moon. The pre-release for Magic's latest set kicks off tonight and spans the rest of the weekend. No doubt many of you are just as hyped as I am. So gather your friends and enjoy some Friday Night Lore as you wait for the event to begin. This week's lore again focuses on some old characters from Shadows over Innistrad, providing us with our first look at them in Eldritch Moon. Today we follow the once hero of Thraben turned heretic Cathar Thalia, and her motley crew of holy outcasts, including one Odric, a former member of the Lunar Council. Both Thalia and Odric were both devout warriors and defenders of the Church of Avacyn. For the majority of their lives, they served their archangel faithfully, but their alliance came into question when they discovered that a cult of demon worshippers had infiltrated key positions in the Order, and even the angels themselves fell mad, Avacyn among them. Rather than blindly follow and forsaking everything the church once stood for, Thalia, Odric, and several others left to start their own organization, the Order of Saint Traft. The Saint Traft was once a holy Cathar and skilled demon hunter. His actions were so just that even the angels themselves gave him their blessing. Wherever he'd go, all he would have to do is call, and a battalion of angels would arrive to provide him protection and aid. Thus was the holiness of Saint Traft. Yet he was eventually cut down by a clever demon and his cultists. Using a young girl as bait to drive the Cathar away from his wards and angelic companions, he saved the girl but ultimately lost his life. A life he would easily trade again if given the chance. Though his body may have given in, his spirit remained true to the cause, and of course on Innistrad, ghosts can be just as influential as the living. The angels still came to his call, even in his spectral form, but more needed to be done. The little girl he had saved so many years ago arrived at his grave to pay her respects to the fallen hero. She had grown into a skilled hunter in Cathar, looking to follow her idol and serving the church. The Geist of Saint Traft reached out to her, willing to protect and guide her one last time. Accepting the offer, the girl and ghost became one. The red-headed child became the first heir of Traft. As the angel had favored him in the past, they now favored his chosen vessel. Years had passed since Traft last took a champion, but as it turned out, Thalia would be his next heir. Finding this holy location under overgrown vines and vegetation, the Geist appeared to her through a painting. He felt her spirit, the holy fire that burned within. All she needed to do was accept his proposal. Thalia knew about Traft. Who in the Holy Order hadn't? It was an honor to take the Geist in. As the spirit filled her body, a cold fire took a hold of her, a reminder of her spectral passenger. He would give her strength and guidance when she needed it most, but together they would bring light back to Innistrad. Thus began the Order of Saint Traft. This ragtag group of clergy, Cathar, and peasants all banded together to keep the aspirations of their church pure, and to survive the new night that was slowly choking Innistrad and its people. The former followers of Avacyn who still occupied Thraben, the holy capital, had all gone mad with zealotry. Before she died, Archangel Avacyn too became mad, ordering the slaughter of all she believed to be impure. This wasn't her church, this wasn't her angel. This is why she became a heretic, and this is why the army behind her marched on Thraben. Outside of the church, another reason to fight had begun to slither across Innistrad. A strange pressure corrupted everything that lived. Beasts grew extra limbs, werewolves grew strange lattice all over their bodies, and humans mumbled incoherently about the end. Some couldn't even be recognized as anything of this world. Some were so far gone that only pieces of what they had once been could be seen under the mass of tentacles and fleshy appendages. As her army marched, they encountered numerous monsters on the road to Thraben. Odric had stayed behind with some in the Order, too despondent to carry the fight to their former homes, but Thalia was joined by many others, like Rem, a man known as the Slayer of Angels. He too was a former Cathar, but now hunts the angels he once served, protecting their ideals even if they wouldn't. He brought Thalia a gift from the capital, the broken spear of Avacyn. Until then, many held out hope that the rumors of her death were just that, but this was proof. Although she had gone mad, many still loved and worshipped her, giving hope that she would return to normal. With this staff, that hope was extinguished. Thalia went to lift the large weapon, but as soon as she touched it, a holy light burned her skin. The Geist of Saint Traft whispered to her, "Try again." And with the cold fire of the ghost running through her fingers, Thalia exhaustingly lifted the heavy pole and placed it in the standard mount on the back of her flying griff. The pole glowed with angelic light, a symbol for the Order of Saint Traft to follow into battle. The road to Thraben began filling with the corrupted. It seemed they were being called to the former holy capital. They weren't outwardly aggressive towards the men, seeming content to just slink and crawl their way forward. Thalia ordered her men to stop engaging with the monsters. They certainly fought back when they were turned on, and so as long as they didn't attack, it was better to just preserve their strength for the larger fight to come. Eventually, Thalia, riding her magnificent griff mount, came across an odd specimen even for these malformed abominations. It looked as if it were at one point a horse, but not just a horse and its rider. The creature was now firmly fused together in a heap of lattice, limbs, and tentacles. It was supported by 6 legs and several arms which reached out and grabbed at her. The lower half heaved up and knocked Thalia from the griff. She drew her sword and parried what tentacles she could. One managed to slap her across the face, causing her cheek to become numb. This numbness quickly spread throughout her body. She stabbed into the chest of what she thought was the horse part of the monster, but it barely flinched as orange and yellow pus escaped the wound. Her trusty griff flew in and skewered the monster with its beak, finally causing it to scream out in pain. Soon, they were surrounded by fellow warriors, all dealing equal blows to the beast until it lay lifeless on the road. The madness of the encounter caused some in her army to break down in despair. This could be all their fates, and with that doubt came a transformation. The evil that spread across this land invaded the mind and twisted the body. Some of her own fell that very day. As they turned, Thalia took it upon herself to grant them a quick death, while they were still mostly human. A mercy far too many had been denied. This is what awaited them in Thraben. The city's walls were in view now. Most of the men were on edge, but seeing and hearing Thalia's words of inspiration ushered them forward. The scouts brought reports of another army heading their way. Could it perhaps be those zealots, the sin purged as they call themselves, looking to bring justice to the heretic Thalia? She flew forward to check it out. Her griff took her above the advancing force, a group of knights dressed in heavy black armor. At their head, a woman with fiery red hair, also dressed in black steel, carrying a large black blade and wearing what appeared to be an ornate skirt? Very odd clothing choice for battle, but needless to say, this wasn't the group of zealots she expected. The leader began to float up to meet Thalia on her mount, but she flew under her own magic. The pale skin, the dress, it became clear now. These were vampires. The red-headed one held out her arms as to signal a parley. Although she held her sword, she wanted a peaceful audience with Thalia. They greeted one another and introduced themselves. Thalia was shocked to be seeing the famed Olivia Voldaren in person, the ancient producer of an entire bloodline whose storied parties are the envy of Innistrad. Surely, her host would be strong. They discussed their common enemy, these abominations, and how they seemed to be flooding towards Thraben. They agreed that an alliance should be formalized. So long as they shared an enemy, no human blade would pierce a vampire and no vampire should feast upon a human. Until the fighting was done, that is. Thalia knew of her malicious tricks. Yes, they fought a common foe, but as soon as the victory was theirs, the vampires would turn on the humans as an after-battle snack. Still, the alternative was no better. Thalia agreed. They couldn't fight together, but they would still fight the same enemy. There would be no battle between humans and vampires today. Both leaders returned to their respective forces. The time had come. The Order of Saint Traft had reached the outer wall of Thraben and monsters were turning more vicious. Although their steel was strong, many of their minds had started to waver. This place is where the corrupting thoughts were strongest. Even Thalia's mind fell to doubt, only to have the Geist of Saint Traft break her free of its grip. But her men had no such protections. It was time for the 2 holy warriors to offer those who would fight a gift. Should they accept it, they would be filled with the same power as Thalia had. When before Traft called to the angels, he now called to the spirits of the dead. Former soldiers and fighters of the light looking to continue their work in the world they loved. They had gathered here on his command. From the rotting ground to the soaring skies, geists of all shapes and sizes came to Thraben. Those men who would accept them in, as Thalia had with Traft, would be endowed with their strength and find courage lost to them in this dark place. Many opened their arms and willingly invited the Geists in. Others took more time to think it over. Others still rolled on the ground already lost to the corruption. While she could have ordered the ghosts to free the minds of the defeated, Thalia refused it. Anyone who would take this must do so willingly. She would never force it upon anyone. The men who accepted, reinvigorated and ready for battle, formed at the front of the line. Those who hadn't yet still kept their composure fell in behind. And to their flank, another army formed of the spirits willing to fight for the world they had already left. Together, they charged and brought the fight to Thraben. Thalia took to her griff and flew high above the confusing skirmish. She saw Olivia and her band of vampire knights fighting, looking almost as savage as the deformed monsters themselves. She even saw a few of her men stop to feed on the beasts. It almost turned her stomach. Thalia also spied a group of werewolves entering the other side of the city, being led by 2 gray-furred alphas. These were normal werewolves, a welcome sight compared to the true monsters they've been seeing all day. The pack was ripping and tearing at those who had already transformed, even killing their own if they turned. They didn't appear to be a threat, for now at least. Then, through the corner of her eye, Thalia saw a great figure rise into the sky, blocking out what little of the sun could be seen through the clouds and fog. It was a twisted angelic being. No, 2 angels, fused into one body. The heads pulled at each other in agony as a screech echoed through all of Thraben, the true terror of this curse clear for all to see. Thalia motioned to her mount to fly at great speed. It would be fitting for her and Traft to deal with this abomination. Flying next to it, she got a true grasp of its size. Its body was gigantic, while its 2 heads were roughly the size of her own. She screamed out in a charge, and she flew down blade in hand at her enemy, a symbol for the church itself. She cut into its purple flesh, but nothing seemed to cause much damage. Each hack and slash took great effort, but she fought with the strength of Saint Traft. Her griff dove its beak deep into one of its heads, finally causing a noticeable injury. But the monstrosity lashed out with one of its grotesque arms and knocked the griffin Thalia to the ground. Her sword had been flung several yards away, and her mount now pinned her by the leg, which she could feel was very much so broken. The angelic whore flew gently down to finish her off. With no leg and no sword to defend herself, no amount of power from Saint Traft could save her. But she heard a voice bellow from the jointed heads, 2 voices in one yelling out. Turning around, the monster faced Sigarda, the last archangel still uncorrupted by madness. The pure angel of Heron's grace replied that they were no longer her sisters. That meant that this thing was all that remained of Bruna and Gisela, leaving Sigarda alone in this fight. Sigarda and her long Heron scythe fought the hideous combination of her sisters for what seemed like forever, as Thalia felt Traft healing her bones and mending her wounds from the inside out. She needed to join the fight. Sigarda wasn't strong enough on her own. This proved correct, as the monsters that were once her sisters enveloped her and brought Sigarda into their latticey fold. They were looking to assimilate their lost sister. With the power of the Geist fueling her veins, Thalia lifted the mount off of her and prepared to fight. But with no sword, how could she rescue Sigarda from her former sisters? Saint Traft spoke to her. The spear, Avacyn spear, use it. She remembered how heavy it was. There's no way she could wield it in battle, but again, the ghost assured her. Lifting it now, with the combined strength of her and Traft, was easy. And the saint called upon one last favor from an unnamed angel. Light took a hold of Thalia, and she was gifted with translucent wings of energy, the true flight of the angels. She took to the air, broken spear in hand, as Sigarda was slowly being taken in. The jagged edge of the pole pierced and burned the former angel's skin like fire, allowing their captive to wiggle free. Blow after blow, the angels seemed more sluggish and less able to mount a counterattack. After another flail missed its mark, Thalia flew up and shoved the spear deep into the back of the monster's neck. It fell with Thalia and Sigarda to the ground, ending in a heap of mass on the stones of Thraben. The now freed Sigarda, the last archangel of Innistrad, lifted Thalia up and proclaimed victory. And victory, for the first time, seemed achievable. The humans and their Geist companions seemed to finally be pushing the monsters back. But as Thalia stood by Sigarda, her gaze turned skywards to the source of Innistrad's woes. It floated in the sky, a mass of madness that defied any law of man or nature. With this doom came a surge of monsters, each more fearsome than those they fought thus far. The tide was again turning, but Thalia and her Cathars would fight on. And that, guys, is the latest story from Eldritch Moon. It seems Thalia has finally gotten into a place where she belongs in this new block, which I love. Thalia was an awesome character back in the original block, and it's nice to see Wizard doing her character some justice. Of course, the ultimate battle isn't over yet, but we've already seen humans, vampires, and even werewolves fighting a common enemy, possibly setting up a formal alliance between these races. We're seeing some interesting developments in characters with the church and even the angels in Sigarda, and I'm excited to learn more. But I want to know what you guys think about this week's story. How about Thalia killing Basella, huh? Let me know in the comments below. As with all my FNLs, it's time to announce the giveaway card of the week. For this special pre-release FNL, I'll be giving away my copy of Thalia, Heretic, Cathar. How can I give away a card I'm not guaranteed to pull, you ask? Well, I can't give away my secrets, but I always seem to predict my pulls at pre-releases. And I don't cheat or steal. Fine, I trade for them, okay, savages? Anyway, to enter for your chance to win this card, all you had to do is be a subscriber to the channel, leave a comment on this video. At the end of the week, I'll choose one at random and announce them at the end of next week's FNL. Before we end this video, let's unveil last week's winner for this copy of Sorin Grim Nemesis. Congratulations to the user Tom Brophy. To accept the prize, please send me an email in the back end of my channel or just send me a message via Twitter. If you guys haven't already, following me on Twitter is the easiest way to stay up to date with the channel and to accept giveaways. And that's gonna do it for this week's FNL, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please support the channel by liking and sharing it with friends. You can also support the channel on Patreon. When you become a patron, you not only support the channel directly, but you also get entered to win special giveaways every month ranging from cards, fat packs, and even entire booster boxes. With Eldritch Moon here, support the channel and grab some awesome products through Patreon. Links for that and all my social media sites can be found in the description below. As always, my Vorthos army, thanks for being an awesome community, and I'll see you next time.